She vanished without a word, pregnant, heartbroken, and betrayed. 4 years later, he finds her in Paris, with a daughter who looks just like him. Celeste Monroe, a fierce fashion CEO and devoted mother, thought she buried the past. But when Aidan Blackwell resurfaces, everything she built starts to tremble. Love, lies, and a second chance collide in a city made for healing. Will she let him in, or shut the door forever? Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more powerful stories that hit straight to the heart. The sun dipped low over Santa Monica, casting a soft tangerine glow over the coastline as Celeste Monroe pulled into the driveway of her sleek, glass-fronted apartment, nestled in a quiet cul-de-sac just off Ocean Avenue. The sound of tires crunching softly against the gravel echoed the rhythm of her heart, steady, tired, but relentless. She cut the engine and sat for a moment, her manicured fingers resting on the leather steering wheel, breathing in the silence. Behind the tinted windows, the world thought she had it all: wealth, fame, elegance, and power. But inside, Celeste carried a storm that no one could see, one that no luxury could silence. At 27, Celeste had turned her late mother's two-sewing machine boutique into Monroe Atelier, a global fashion house admired from Los Angeles to Dubai. They called her the Velvet Empress in business circles, a nickname that once made her laugh. Now, it just sounded exhausting. She stepped out of the car, her stilettos clicking against the stone path, and entered the grand foyer. A delicate chandelier bathed the marble floor in warm gold, but her mind was already drifting elsewhere, until the sound of laughter cut through her fatigue like sunlight through fog. She paused. That laugh, pure, high-pitched, and bubbling, belonged to one person: Nova. A slow smile crept across Celeste's face as she followed the sound into the sun-drenched living room. There, sprawled on the patterned rug, was Nova, her 4-year-old daughter, caught in a fit of giggles as she built a makeshift castle out of cereal boxes and crayons with her grandfather. Henry Monroe, Celeste's father, knelt beside her, his salt-and-pepper hair slightly disheveled, his tailored shirt wrinkled from play. He held up a crayon like a scepter and said in a booming, silly voice, "And now Princess Nova shall rule over the kingdom of no bedtime." Nova erupted in more giggles. When she spotted Celeste, she jumped to her feet and sprinted toward her. "Mommy?" Celeste dropped her designer bag without a second thought, arms open. "My baby." She scooped Nova up, burying her face in the little girl's soft curls. "I missed you so much." "I missed you more, Mommy. Every day." Henry stood slowly, smiling as he walked over. He placed a comforting hand on Celeste's back. "Welcome home, sweetheart." Celeste turned and embraced him with one arm, still holding Nova close with the other. For a moment, the weight on her chest seemed to lighten. They sat together in the living room, the scent of freshly cooked jollof rice and grilled suya wafting in from the kitchen. The soft hum of a jazz playlist played from the wall speakers. For the first time in weeks, Celeste allowed herself to exhale. "You've done enough, Celeste," Henry said gently, his voice calm but firm. "That company of yours, it's running like a well-oiled machine. But you're burning out." She gave him a side glance, one brow arched. "Dad, what are you saying?" He smiled knowingly. "Take a break. Let me watch over things for a while. You and Nova, get out of here. Go somewhere that doesn't smell like deadlines and deal memos." Celeste hesitated, her instinct to resist curling up in her chest like a reflex. I wouldn't even know how to slow down." "Then learn," he said, placing a hand on her knee. "Because your daughter deserves it. And so do you." She looked down at Nova, who was now braiding her doll's hair with great focus, her tiny mouth moving silently to a made-up tune. Maybe her father was right. Maybe she had forgotten how to live. How to just be. "Okay." She whispered more to herself than to him. "We'll go. Just the two of us." Henry grinned like a man who just won a quiet war. "Good. You'll thank me later." Later that night, after Nova had fallen asleep curled beside her favorite bunny pillow, Celeste slipped into her walk-in closet and ran her fingers along the row of untouched dresses. She pulled out a red silk slip that shimmered like fire in the light and held it against her body. Her reflection stared back, polished, poised, and a little lost. Maybe it was time to chase herself again, somewhere far from the noise. Somewhere like Paris. Celeste woke the next morning with an unfamiliar feeling blooming in her chest. something light like anticipation or maybe freedom. The sun filtered in through gauzy curtains, and for once she didn't reach for her phone. Instead, she rolled over and watched Nova sleep beside her. Her small hand curled around the stuffed bunny that had traveled with them through every phase of life. Her daughter's breathing was steady, peaceful. It reminded Celeste why she was doing this, why she had said yes to a break, to Paris, to possibility. By noon, she had cleared her schedule, signed off an email to her senior director with a shaky kind of trust, and handed over full executive power for the next 10 days. Her name would still sit at the top of the company letterhead, but for the first time, she was stepping back. It felt like handing over a child. But the relief that followed was undeniable. That afternoon, Celeste decided to pick up Nova's favorite milk chocolates from a quaint little shop tucked into a side street off Ocean Park. She drove herself. No assistant, no driver, no distractions. As she walked into the shop, the bell above the door chimed, and she found herself smiling at the simple charm of it. Rows of pastel-wrapped treats lined the shelves, and the smell of cocoa and vanilla danced in the air. She grabbed a few bars, wrapped in metallic pink foil, the kind that made Nova's eyes light up. Back at home, she found her daughter and Henry on the balcony, Nova cross-legged with a box of crayons, while Henry tried to read the newspaper with a crayon-drawn mustache on his upper lip. Celeste laughed and crouched beside Nova. "Guess what, baby?" she whispered, brushing a braid off her daughter's forehead. "We're going to Paris." Nova's eyes widened, her lips parting in delighted surprise. "Paris? Just us?" Celeste nodded, smiling. "Yes, sweetheart, just you and me, for 1 whole week." Nova shrieked with joy, throwing her arms around her mother's neck. "Mommy, thank you, I'm so happy." That night, after Nova had been tucked into bed and her travel documents printed and stacked, Celeste stood in front of her full-length mirror, wearing the red silk dress she had chosen the night before. It clung to her curves like a second skin, the fabric rippling with every subtle movement. Her long hair was swept to one side, her heels high and unapologetic. She wasn't going out to find anything, just to feel something. To laugh, sip wine, listen to music loud enough to silence the thoughts that never seemed to stop. The city glimmered under streetlights as she stepped into the lounge, a velvet rope kind of place tucked between a boutique hotel and an art gallery. The music pulsed through her ribcage, Afrobeat rhythms setting the tone. She danced, she laughed, she breathed. For the first time in a long time, Celeste allowed herself to disappear into the noise. She was on her way back from the bathroom, adjusting her heel and giggling to herself about a drunk guy who had tried and failed to salsa nearby, when she collided with something or someone solid. Her balance tipped, but she didn't fall. 2 strong arms caught her, steadying her with practiced ease. She froze, instantly recognizing the scent. That cologne, spicy, warm, touched with oud, wasn't just familiar, it was imprinted on her memory. She looked up, and the world tilted. Aidan Blackwell stood in front of her, older, broader, and impossibly handsome. The years had sharpened him, deepened his jawline, carved experience into every corner of his face. But it was his eyes, those piercing gray eyes, that undid her. They locked on hers, unreadable, yet burning. For a moment, neither of them breathed. Then he whispered like a prayer, "Starlight." Her knees nearly gave out. That name he'd given her during quiet nights and wild sunrises, when love had felt like the only truth. She blinked hard, willing herself to move, to run, to scream, but nothing came. "Aidan," she breathed, barely more than sound. He stepped closer, his voice breaking. "I've been looking for you, for 4 years." Celeste backed away instinctively, heart pounding. "There's nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes." "Don't call me that," she snapped, louder than intended. Her voice cracked, eyes burned. A blur of motion, Layla, then Marcus, appeared at her sides. Layla's gaze was ice. She said no. Aidan clenched his jaw but stepped back. "You owe me that much, Celeste," he said quietly. "I don't owe you anything," she said, and turned her back. Even as her chest caved in and her heart shattered all over again. Paris was a living postcard, each corner blooming with old-world charm and elegance. But Celeste moved through it like a woman walking through a dream she wasn't sure she was allowed to feel. She filled their days with laughter and sightseeing, river cruises down the Seine, pastel macarons from tucked-away patisseries, and hours spent in museums where Nova could marvel at paintings bigger than her. Celeste smiled for photos, held her daughter's hand tight, and convinced herself that this trip was about healing. That if she could hold it together for 7 days, she could finally let go of the past for good. But the past had a way of showing up, even beneath the Parisian sun. It was a Wednesday afternoon, quiet and breezy, and they were walking through the Jardin des Plantes. Nova ran ahead, chasing pigeons and spinning with her arms outstretched. Celeste sat on a shaded bench, watching her child with the kind of ache only mothers understood, a mix of fierce love and fragile fear. She reached for her bottle of water, unscrewed the cap, and that's when a shadow fell across her feet. She looked up. Aiden. Her breath caught mid-thought. He stood there, tall and composed in a tailored navy shirt, the kind of man who could make silence feel like thunder. His eyes didn't leave her face, not even to look at Nova. For a full second, the world shrunk down to the space between them. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice low but sharp, standing immediately, stepping slightly in front of Nova. "I didn't come to fight," he said, hands raised, voice calm. "I just want to talk." "You followed us here?" "I didn't follow you. I found you." He looked past her, at Nova, who was now crouched, inspecting a ladybug on her hand. Celeste's body went rigid as Aiden crouched slowly, careful, measured, not getting too close. "Hi there," he said gently. "What's your name?" Nova looked up, squinting at the stranger. "Nova." Celeste's chest constricted. Aiden's voice trembled. "That's a beautiful name." Nova smiled shyly. "Thanks. Mommy picked it. She says it means a new star." His throat bobbed as he tried to swallow emotion. "How old are you, Nova?" Before Celeste could cut in, Nova answered cheerfully, 4.5. He nodded, lips pressed tightly together. His eyes met Celeste's again, this time darker, deeper. "She's mine, isn't she?" Celeste didn't answer. She bent down, scooped Nova into her arms and whispered, "It's time to go." "Celeste, wait," he said, standing, his voice cracking. "Please, don't do this again." But she was already walking, her heart hammering, her daughter's curls brushing against her cheek. Nova wrapped her arms around her mother's neck. "Mommy? Who was that man?" Celeste kept walking, too shaken to answer. That evening, back at the hotel, Celeste sat on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking as she held her phone. She needed to call someone, to breathe, but there was no one. She glanced at Nova, who was coloring peacefully at the table. Then her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She let it ring twice before answering. "Hello?" Silence. Then, "Celeste, it's me." She closed her eyes. "Aiden, I don't want to fight you, but you don't get to decide if I exist in her life. I'm her father. You don't get to show up after 4 years and claim anything," she said, her voice sharper now. "I didn't leave you," he replied, pain simmering beneath the surface. "I came for you that day. I looked everywhere. You were gone." Celeste clenched her jaw. "You were getting married." "No, I canceled the wedding. I was on my way to find you." The silence between them turned thick, pulsing with old hurt and questions that had no safe answers. "I want to be part of her life," he said finally. "If I have to take you to court, I will." Her grip on the phone tightened. "You would really drag us into that?" "I don't want to, but I will. She's my daughter too." That night, after Nova had gone to bed, Celeste stood by the window, the Eiffel Tower glittering in the distance, her reflection warped in the glass. She remembered the pregnancy test, the fear, the morning she left London with only a suitcase and the photograph her mother had given her. She'd found Henry, she'd found a life. But Aiden? He had never truly disappeared. Not from her heart, not from her daughter's smile, and now he was here, demanding a place in a story she'd rewritten without him. The hotel suite was quiet, save for the soft hum of the minibar and the rhythmic click of Celeste's fingers on the keyboard as she reviewed their next day's itinerary. Nova was fast asleep in the adjoining room, snuggled beneath a blanket decorated with stars and bunnies. Her tiny hand clutched a souvenir Eiffel Tower, her mouth open just slightly in the deep, content sleep of children who know nothing of betrayal or longing. Celeste, however, couldn't sleep. She hadn't since Aiden showed up in the garden, since Nova unknowingly confirmed what he must have feared all along. Celeste stepped out onto the balcony, letting the cool Paris air kiss her skin. The Eiffel Tower sparkled in the distance, as if mocking her for trying to keep everything under control. She was halfway through a breath when she heard the suite's front door click open and close. She turned around, her heart quickening. Aiden stood in the doorway of the balcony, his gaze unreadable, one hand tucked into the pocket of his gray slacks, the other holding a glass of water. "She's still asleep," he said, his voice low. Celeste didn't answer. She kept her eyes on the horizon, her arms crossed tightly over her silk robe. He stepped closer, but not too close. There was still distance, not just physical, something harder, heavier, built over years of silence and pain. "I never stopped thinking about you," he said after a beat. "About her. Even when I didn't know she existed." She exhaled, slow and controlled. "You don't get to rewrite history, Aiden. I'm not trying to. I need you to understand." "No," she cut in, turning toward him finally. "What I need is to know why you let me think you were marrying someone else. Why I had to grieve you and my mother in the same breath." His expression darkened. "I didn't marry her. I called off the wedding the morning you left. I went to your apartment, but it was empty. You were gone." Celeste blinked, stunned, her heartbeat faltering. "You what?" "I left Miranda that morning," he said, stepping a little closer. "I couldn't marry her. Not when I was still in love with you." The words hit her like thunder. For a moment she said nothing, her mind spinning, trying to reconcile the memory she carried with the one he now offered. Then he stepped closer, too close, and reached out. His fingers brushed along her jaw, soft, slow, reverent. "Don't," she whispered, but it was too late. His lips met hers, gentle at first, then deeper, like something long denied finally released. Her hands twitched at her sides, her breath caught, but she didn't pull away. She hated how easily her body remembered him, hated how her heart responded before her mind could protest. When he finally broke the kiss, she was breathless. "I'm coming to Paris with you and Nova," he said like a vow. "That's final." Celeste stepped back, stunned. "Excuse me? I'm not missing any more moments with my daughter, or with you. You want peace? Let's find it together." She stared at him, lips still parted, chest rising and falling. Then, without a word, she turned and walked inside, her robe fluttering behind her. She didn't say yes, she didn't say no. She just left him standing on the balcony, watching her like she was slipping through his fingers all over again. The morning of their trip to the Eiffel Tower started quietly. Nova danced around the suite in her pink hoodie, excited and oblivious. Celeste packed snacks, loaded her camera, and tried to ignore the pressure in her chest. Aiden arrived right on time, dressed in dark jeans and a soft navy sweater. Nova squealed, running into his arms. "Daddy, are we ready for our Paris day?" Celeste said nothing. She kept her distance, offered no smiles, but she didn't send him away either. At the tower, they moved like a family. Nova laughed as Aiden lifted her high for photos. They shared crepes, chased pigeons, and let her nap in their arms on the way back. Celeste couldn't deny the warmth that bloomed in her chest watching them. Couldn't deny how natural he looked carrying Nova. How right it felt, until that night when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Ask him about Miranda, about the night before your wedding. Everything you know is a lie." She turned slowly, finding Aiden at the window sipping wine. Her voice cracked like glass. "Who sent this?" he stilled. "Celeste. So it's true?" she whispered. "There's more?" His silence said everything. And just like that, everything she'd started to rebuild shattered all over again. The night was thick with tension. Celeste stood barefoot on the balcony, her phone still in her hand, the screen gone dark, but the message burned into her memory like a brand. "Ask him about Miranda, about the night before your wedding. Everything you know is a lie." The words pulsed inside her head, louder than the hum of Paris outside. Behind her, Aiden lingered by the window, glass of wine forgotten on the sill. His back was stiff, and when he finally turned to face her, she could see the shift in his eyes. He already knew what she had read. "Tell me the truth," she said quietly, not moving. "Tell me now, or walk out that door and never look back." He took a breath, jaw tight. "Yes, Miranda came to my hotel room the night before the wedding." Celeste felt something inside her tilt, but she held herself still. She said she couldn't sleep. She was crying. She begged me not to go through with it. I told her I couldn't marry someone I didn't love. "And you let her stay?" Celeste's voice was sharp, breaking against her will. "I did, But nothing happened, I swear to you. He stepped forward, hands raised as if surrendering. I was going to tell you. But you didn't, she cut in, eyes gleaming with betrayal. You knew it would ruin us, so you kept it quiet and let me walk away thinking I was the only one who suffered. I was scared, Celeste. I'd already lost you once. She turned away, gripping the railing so tightly her knuckles whitened. Her breath came fast and shallow. You don't get to say you were scared. I was alone, pregnant, burying my mother. You had a fiancé at your door and a family name to protect. I had nothing but the hope that you'd show up, and you didn't. He moved closer, but she didn't face him. You want to fix this? You can't. You shattered it. I know, he said softly, but I'm not leaving. I won't stop trying to show you I'm not the man I was. Celeste turned slowly, tears trailing down her cheeks, anger and pain battling in her eyes. You don't deserve a second chance. But Nova, she does. She deserves to know her father. I want to be in her life, Aiden said, stepping closer, his voice cracking. I'll fight for that, Celeste, but I also want you. I want to build this again. Us. She laughed bitterly. There is no us, not anymore. Before he could respond, she walked past him into the suite, shutting the balcony doors behind her with a quiet but final click. She didn't sleep that night. She lay beside Nova, who wrapped her arms around her mother's waist in her sleep, murmuring something about the Eiffel Tower. Celeste stared at the ceiling, her mind a chaos of memories, what-ifs, and regrets. The kiss they'd shared, the way he still looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered, it all haunted her. Morning came wrapped in gold. Nova's little feet patted across the room, her arms flinging around Celeste with sleepy warmth. Mommy, she whispered, I heard you and Daddy last night. Celeste froze, her chest tightening. I don't like it when you cry, Nova said softly, her voice full of small, worried love. I just want you and Daddy to be happy. Later that day, Aiden didn't press. They went out, walked along the river. Dad got Nova a tiny silver Eiffel Tower necklace from a street vendor and sat in the grass at the Jardin des Plantes. Aiden lifted Nova onto his shoulders, letting her pretend to fly. He let her smear ice cream on his nose just to hear her laugh. And every time Celeste looked at them, she felt something in her slowly shifting. That night, when Nova was asleep, Celeste stepped onto the balcony again. Aiden joined her without a word, standing quietly beside her. I hurt you, he said finally, voice low. And I've spent every day since regretting it. She didn't reply. I wasn't a complete man without you, Celeste. I breathe you. I dream about you. I love you. She turned to him slowly, her eyes soft but unreadable. I won't punish myself for loving you anymore, she whispered. But this time, we do things on my terms. He nodded slowly, chest heaving with silent relief. Anything, just don't walk away. I'm not walking away, she said, stepping forward to take his hand. But you'll have to keep proving you're worth staying for. And for the first time in years, it felt like a beginning. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And in the city of love, that was more than enough. The lavender sky of their final night in Paris stretched endlessly over the city, painting the streets in a glow that looked almost enchanted. Laughter followed Celeste, Aiden, and Nova as they walked hand in hand past street performers and glowing cafes, their silhouettes blending into the blur of a world that, for a moment, felt gentle. Nova's face was radiant, cheeks pink with excitement, clutching the miniature Eiffel Tower necklace Aiden had given her. For the first time in a long time, Celeste allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to stop surviving and simply live. What it might be like to feel loved again without fear. Back at the hotel, Nova fell asleep instantly. Tangled in a sea of blankets, her toy bunny tucked beneath her arm. The room was warm, silent, except for the sound of the city just beyond the balcony doors. Celeste stepped outside into the cool air, her silk nightgown rippling around her legs. She stood barefoot, arms folded across her chest, letting her mind drift. The peace she had tried so hard to hold onto during the trip now felt fragile, like it might slip between her fingers the moment she let herself relax. Aiden joined her a few minutes later, moving slowly, his presence calm but charged. He didn't speak at first, just leaned against the railing beside her, his hands resting on the cool metal, his eyes tracing the skyline. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough. I hurt you, he said, and I've spent every day since regretting it. Celeste didn't answer, Her fingers dug into her own arms as she stared ahead, every muscle tensed. I wasn't ready back then, he continued. I thought I had everything under control. My career, my future, even my heart. But I didn't. Losing you showed me that. She turned to him slowly, eyes bright with unshed tears. You say you weren't ready, but I was. I would have chosen you through everything. Through the grief, the loneliness. All I needed was for you to meet me halfway. I know, he said, his voice thick. And I failed you. You didn't just fail me, Aiden, she said, stepping forward now, her voice gaining weight. You left me to carry everything alone. I buried my mother in a city that wasn't mine. I raised our daughter in a silence you helped create. His jaw clenched, but he didn't look away. I never wanted to abandon you. You didn't have to want it. You just did it. A heavy pause lingered between them. Then Celeste shook her head and laughed bitterly. And now you think 1 week in Paris can fix 4 years of absence? No, he said softly, but it reminded me of who we were, of what we could still be. Her heart ached with the weight of memory. The way he used to hold her in the dark. The way he kissed her like the world might end before morning. The way he looked at Nova now, with wonder and remorse, like he was trying to catch up on all the days he'd lost. I hate that you still have power over me, she whispered. That one kiss, one memory, still makes me question everything I've built. He stepped closer, cautiously, and reached for her hand. Then let me earn it back, not with promises, not with grand gestures, with patience, with truth, with showing up. Celeste stared at his hand for a long moment before placing hers gently in it. Her voice, when it came, was quiet but steady. I won't punish myself anymore for loving you, but this time, it happens on my terms. Anything, he said, gripping her hand tightly. Whatever it takes. Later that night, she lay beside Nova, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead as the little girl stirred in her sleep. Her mind was quieter now, not silent, but quieter. She had no illusions. Love didn't erase the past. It didn't undo mistakes. But maybe, just maybe, it gave you the courage to face them. In the morning, Aiden made breakfast for Nova, burnt pancakes and all, and she squealed with laughter as he tried to flip one in the air and nearly dropped it. Celeste stood at the doorway watching, a cup of tea in her hands and something softer in her gaze. She didn't speak, just watched them like a woman relearning the shape of something she thought she'd lost. That afternoon, they wandered through the streets again. A trio now, not broken, not fixed, just present. And for the first time in a long time, that was more than enough. Life lesson. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't walking away, it's allowing yourself to come back. Celeste's story reminds us that healing isn't always loud or sudden. Sometimes it's quiet. It's in the way we face what once broke us, not to relive the pain, but to reclaim the parts of ourselves we thought we lost. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over bitterness, growth over resentment. Aiden made mistakes. Big ones. He disappeared when he was most needed. But what made the difference wasn't his apology. It was his effort, his willingness to show up, to listen, to earn trust brick by brick. Love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present, especially when it's uncomfortable. Celeste didn't choose to forget. She chose to draw boundaries, to protect her peace, while still allowing the possibility of something new. Not for the sake of romance, but for her daughter. For herself. And in doing so, she taught us that strength isn't in never breaking. It's in knowing how to rebuild on your own terms. So if you've ever been hurt, or if you've ever hurt someone and wondered if it's too late, let this story remind you. It's never too late to try again, with honesty, with patience, with love that's earned, not assumed. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We'd love to know where our community is growing. And if this story moved you even just a little, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories like this one. Your support helps us keep telling tales that heal, inspire, and remind us all of what really matters.